Action. What's up? What's up, family? Guess what? It's June 19th, also known as what? Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Yeah. We out here chilling. What's this area called, actually?
This is Grayson slash
Grayson,
Snellville.
Yeah.
This is I think this is
Grayson.
Gwinnett.
It's Grayson County.
Yeah, so out here in Grayson slash Snellville, Gwinnett area, chilling.
Probably weren't allowed to be some time ago.
Just down the road from the big mountain.
Yeah, so the big mountain. And what is the big
White
mountain?
Folk Mountain.
Okay.
All right, so speaking of that,
Confederate
we
mountain.
want to talk a little bit about what Juneteenth means for us. You know, it's all wrapped into the Emancipation Proclamation, a bill that was signed like back in 1863,
Something like that.
Yeah.
63 or 4.
and the Civil War came to an end about 1865, but the whole Emancipation Proclamation thing came into effect like 1863, and those slaves that were in the South on the east side was already free, but the Texans wanted to keep their people underfoot for a little bit. So they didn't find out till like 1865 when Brigadier General, what's his name, Gordon Garrett, I believe it was, came and stood on,
Garrett sounds, yeah.
right, that stood on that balcony and told everybody that they were free, the Civil War was over, and that's how Juneteenth came into effect when the folks in Galveston, Texas actually found out they had really supposed to been free, hadn't been free.
How long were they supposed to have been free before they found out? Like
2 years.
It was 2 years?
It was about 2.5 years later they
Wow.
found out.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, Texas has always been this state that kind of was operating outside the union. They do their own thing. And that's the same as today. They had been one to separate for some time and do
Bush
their
is
own
from
thing.
where?
Texas. Yep. So it doesn't surprise me.
No, it's history always repeats itself.
It does. And what's interesting is how they just made it national holiday, and they did it easily and with none of us asking for it, but they can't pass some of these actual legislations that's going to do for us, like these voting legislations that they're repealing, but they want to give us a holiday.
Exactly. I was talking to one of my neighbors across the street, and he said it's amazing. You know, we've been asking for justice, and what they give us is a holiday.
Right.
Malcolm
You know.
X had a quote about, I'm going to find that. Malcolm X had a quote about exactly just that. about-
They gave us a holiday. You know, what would you do with 40 acres and a mule right now? What would you do with that?
Man, in this day and age, right now,
And we have so many say, well, you know, I didn't do that. That ain't had nothing to do with me. But the real truth about it, family, is just we still suffering behind all that.
They still
This
suffering, they still benefiting.
Exactly.
From what they had nothing to do with.
Well,
You-
here's the thing, right? You can say you didn't have anything to do with it, but your grandfather stole that land, or your grandfather had those slaves and got that free labor, built all those riches, and then gave it to his grandchildren, and then gave it to his and now here you are with it.
Yep.
So you are direct
benefactor.
benefactor from it. So how do you justify standing clear like it wasn't me? No, that don't fly. It don't fly.
And you know, I was listening to a gentleman talking a few days ago on YouTube, and he was breaking down about memory. We oftentimes think of memory as just being in your brain or whatever, but that's only 1%. There you go. That's only 1%. all of what was done to our ancestors, we feel it because, as you said, Herschel, it's in our DNA. You know, and to be quite honest with you, we are those people. When you look at us, we got their ears, their eyes, their noses. Everything about us is them. It carried on into us, and it's in our DNA, and we remember and we feel everything they felt. That's why, for me, I don't care to watch these slave movies and all that stuff anymore. I can't tolerate it.
And even if you think about how we raise our children, the Caucasians, they'll go in a store and their kids are able to run around and do any and everything they want to do. And when we take our kids in the store, we tell them before we go in there, don't touch nothing, don't do this, don't do that, behave. But what it breeds is that the white children, it breeds in their mind, I can go to an environment that's not mine and take it over.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we're teaching our children, when you go to this environment that's not yours,
Stay in
don't
your
say
place.
nothing, stay in your place. And that's that ingrained stuff that comes from way back then.
Yep.
That's in us.
Yep.
It's troublesome because when you're as a young child, that's when everything's imprinted on you. So if you grew up being little and somebody always telling you you can't go here, you could go there, as an adult, you know, it's hardly ever able to unwrap that at all. So
Gotcha.
you're gonna look at, for example, a job. You're gonna doubt yourself to get that job, or you're gonna be like, I don't belong in that job because
That you're overqualified.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
I was a natural baritone, and my natural voice, but it was too heavy.
Okay.
So my parents would make me change my voice so I wouldn't sound older than I was.
Wow.
Right? Because they were afraid that what happened to me. But, you know, we grew up right here in Georgia. You know, Stone Mountain, you know, right now it's a hop and skip. Because, you know, whatever. It seemed like 100 miles away, but no, that was right on top of us. That was Clan headquarters. Literally Clan headquarters. You know, so the fear that they had, you know, that it was just I understood that they were trying to protect me.
Yeah.
Right? But it altered my
Perception.
being,
Yep.
right? It altered
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
You know, to have to go through that, and then, you know, and it's funny sometimes people hear me talk, and then when my natural voice really kick in, they kind of look at me like, well, where'd that come from? You know, I'm like, well, I've been trained so much to be a tenor, you know, to be a tenor for so long. That
Right.
That's what I'm like.
You
It
so
was
much.
crazy.
There's so much the way where you don't want to be put in scopes. Like
Yeah, exactly. Target.
you want to be
that
target. I've been, talking to a lot of like people in HR. Like there is perception of our parents trying to protect us from harm,
Okay.
but also it's also a double-edged sword because it makes us not live to full potential.
You're right. Absolutely.
And see, you have to downplay yourself to prevent someone else from being intimidated by you.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
You know, I'm out here talking to you gentlemen, and you are absolutely an intimidation. Yeah. Most of you are low-cut hair or no hair at all with facial hair. That is the typical look that says, I'm intimidating to these individuals, you know, because it's a sign of strength. You know, when you have a bald head in particular with facial hair, that's a sign of strength, especially in a black man. So it's just amazing that we are in 2021 and we still are faced with the same stuff that our ancestors were faced with.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. It's probably worse now.
It is probably worse because they hiding like behind so many layers.
Yes.
Versus back in the day,
They're just wide open, right?
You knew.
this only for
You
common
knew what it
folks.
was.
Yeah.
You
This
knew
is for
what it
this.
was.
This is for you.
And-
You can't go here. You can't go there. Now, like HR may not give you that promotion, give you that job because they look at your name, they
Yeah.
look at your zip code,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, why come you didn't get that job? The interview went really well.
So let me ask you guys, what's the fear? What is the fear? And really, we are the most forgiving, accepting, accommodating. What is the fear? What's the fear?
Here's the fear. I can speculate some of their fear. You've done some wrong to somebody for so long. As soon as they get power, there's going to be some get back.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest fears. Like, man, what did they do to us?
What we did to
What
them.
we did to them.
Yep.
And then they're going to make it worse. Because, man, they owe us. And you know, it's that fear. When you have a war-mongering type of people, that's all they understand. That's all they know. The fear is, man, we can't outdo them naturally. We got to have something in place to give us an edge. But that same thing that we have in place to give us an edge, if they have that and their own natural, they'll tear us up. So
Yeah.
we got to keep the system established so that we can keep them in this position so that they don't really reach their full potential and understand their full power.
Yeah.
And the fear, along with what he was saying, the fear is, one, we're genetically superior, and I'll say it again, we're genetically superior. And also, if we knew who we were, they would be in trouble. We're the true Jews. That's why the Jewish people are considered Jewish. Ish means like.
Yes. Yes.
Jewish. Like, we're the true Jews. We're no Jews in Egypt being enslaved as white people.
No.
They couldn't be in that heat.
They couldn't, yep.
They couldn't be in that heat. Like, we're the Moors. The Moors, the ones that taught them how to wash their asses. They went to Alexandria, to our libraries, to learn everything. While they were still in caves doing certain things, we were building cities. And they want to talk about Egyptians being the first ones to be master builders, which Egyptians were black.
Yep.
You look at
Yep.
all the hieroglyphics, they were lightening the skin on the hieroglyphics. But you find pyramids in further sub-Saharan southern Africa that outdate pyramids of Egypt.
Yes,
So that
indeed.
meant that we had people doing those great civilizations and these buildings that now they say aliens had to help.
That's the first thing they chalk it up as some alien had to do it,
So
as
if
opposed
we
to
knew-
giving the real people the credit for it.
if we knew who we were and who we come from, and that's why England has like the largest collection of African artifacts. and
Yes.
art, because we don't know our history. Also, they want to teach us that black people came to the Americas via slavery. There were black people in America
Already here.
before slavery. That's why if you look at African people and you look at African American people, there are sometimes differences. The head shape, their eye shape,
Yes.
like the lips, like there are differences because some of us was here before slavery.
Yes.
Native
Before
American
Columbus
tribes.
got lost.
Exactly. He never even came here.
Right.
Never came here. He ended up in Jamaica or something like that.
Yeah.
But,
And when you
know,
think about, just to your point about that, how many of those people you think would have actually survived that trip? Stacked on top of each other with really not eating,
Yep.
unclean, laying and sleeping in their own feces and everything else. So you would have had a whole bunch of them dead trying to make that trip. So
Right.
I would absolutely agree that all of these folks that think that the majority of the people here came or was shipped here on boats, I don't believe that.
we were native.
Wouldn't have been able to survive the trip.
We all,
Not the way they had them.
I think another thing that they're afraid of is like how resilient, like
Resilience.
there's nothing like resilient like we are. There's
Right.
nothing.
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many ways to spin that.
It is.
We've overcome a whole lot of stuff now.
I mean, you can give them the modern times. You got kids like in Kenya, in the slums in Kenya. They'll go get the trash that U.S. send over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They'll get that. The kid will get that girl with no formal education.
Mm-hmm.
Take that. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's us right there. Yep.
That's us.
Straight up.
That's native.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's native.
yeah,
Straight up.
yeah.
That's native. You can't tell me that's not a little black girl.
yeah.
Straight up.
But yeah,
Mhm.
it's like in junior, like we have, like they got small children who don't have a Western education. Who can take trash and build a solar panel.
Like
Isn't that
using-
something?
Using the screen from a TV, because we ship that stuff out
Yeah,
because of.
Yes, and that's a whole continent of.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
And you know, Herschel just said, you know, we forgot, if we just were to wake up and remember who we are, if we were left alone to be able to be
who we are.
our full potential of who we are, can you imagine the stuff we would do?
And that's why they killed Martin. Because when Martin stopped preaching that we should be integrated, when he realized that maybe Malcolm is right, he started sounding more and more like Malcolm. And that's when they decided to kill this man. Because he knew, well, they knew that this one man could do the same thing with the black people like he did with the bus boycott and do what? Get in their pockets. So when he started saying, since they don't want us, since they giving these white men land grants to do their own thing, but then telling us to pull ourselves up our bootstrap, he starts talking about, okay, let's do our own, let's have our own communities, our own schools, our own this. That's when they said it's time to get rid of them.
Yeah, because I mean, look at the NBA, the NFL, and all of that. Wouldn't be what it is today without integration.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Would
We had
not.
more businesses back then.
Sure did.
We had more families sticking together. One of the worst things they could have done is sold everybody the story that you have to go to school and go to college.
Yes.
It's not for everyone.
No.
Nope, it is
We
not.
stopped owning our own stuff.
And that was the indoctrination tool.
Mm-hmm.
Was the school. Was the well, not was, it still is the indoctrination
It's,
school, tool that they use. Now I go back to what you were saying about Jewish, like you like, right? And you always look at these things, the Palestinians and the Jews, and they fighting and this and that, whatever. Now, ironic thing about that is they're fighting over land that don't belong.
Don't even
Yeah,
belong
they
to
know.
them.
And they know that.
And then see, that's
They know
the that's the real,
Yep. They know that.
like, really? And they teach us this Egypt as if it's a separate thing.
They try to separate it out of
It's the whole
Africa.
continent, African continent.
Mm-hmm.
Right
It's
there.
on the continent of Africa. It's there.
And the people in Egypt look the way they look now because of migration.
Yep.
If you look at America 200 years ago, it didn't look how it look now. Some people that say, well, they look different. Well, guess what? It's right next to the Middle East, and they migrated. There are plenty of videos of the Egyptian people.
Right
They
now.
know that the black people are the true Egyptians. Like those dreads and the locks and
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. That's
not
not
familiar.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's not them.
Yep.
They don't lock up.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. It's well, to me, it's just goes more deeper. Like when I look at religious, when they say Jesus Christ, white, that right there, upon itself, to you to pray and see a white man, I think that probably religions probably has done the most
Damage, mind.
mind control than anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Modern preachers now in Africa now they realize like reason why we still in shambles because that mind control that we still have, you know what I'm saying, that they put on us. They call our native spiritual
spirituality.
pagan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And even with Christianity, Christianity is whitewashed. Like if people understood, like the oldest Bible known to man is where? Ethiopia.
mm-hmm.
There were people in Africa serving Christ even before the slave trade or whatever. If the oldest Bible's in Ethiopia,
And
that means
Christ is not a person, it's a title.
And yeah, right. So we look at that, right? When we talking about serving Christ, people immediately start thinking about this man figure.
Man figure.
But the constellations, the stars, the sun itself, you know, and all those things is what they talk about. That's how they track everything.
Yeah.
That's how they timed everything. That's how They put this together, and when this rides here, this rises there. Even when you're born in a particular time when the constellations are at a certain position. And those things apply to you.
And that's why they have astrological signs for being born in certain months.
Yeah.
You're this, you're
Yeah.
that.
And there was the age of Pisces.
We did start.
Yes.
So now, like you said before, we're in the age of knowing. We're in this age now where knowledge is abundant. There's
Yep.
nothing that you can't find or learn if you choose to look for.
Mhm.
So now
Yeah.
we're in the age of knowing. Now we can know, we can look back and say, okay, that was a bunch of BS what we went through, what our ancestors went through, what they were taught, the laws thereby by the whole nine. But now is that transitional point that we have to all come to understand and realize that, hey, now we gotta make that turn. And I think they realize that we are making that turn. We are making that change, that
Oh, yeah.
transformation. And that's that fear. The fear is that we know, is our knowledge. So we can open our minds up and understand that we do have that power. We do have
Yes.
to come together as one, as Malcolm was trying to preach, as Martin
At the
later
end,
discovered.
we
Yeah,
starting
Martin
to,
discovered
this-
when we do
yeah.
get that knowledge and that power and come together, then we don't need them. We don't need their structure. We don't
They
need
need
their
us.
Exactly.
Yeah, they need us. Yeah.
That they need us. Like all these homes that we see right here, all these are because of us. You know, the first master builders were us. Even the Masons know that, because Mason just means master builder. They'll tell you the first master builder they believe were the Egyptians. I believe the first master builders were before the Egyptians, because Egypt, the Egyptians came to the land by sailing down the Nile River. Nile River is the only river in the world that flows from south to north.
Yep.
Most rivers flow from north to south. So if
Correct.
they got to Egypt, if the Egyptians got to their land on the Nile River, that meant they were further down
Yep, they
Africa.
follow the river.
And they followed the river
Yep.
up to Egypt. So what does that tell you? The Egyptians were what?
They came later, and they were dark, they were light.
That's correct.
And it's right, if you look at old Egyptian, the paint they use, it's not too later they start using lighter paint.
Yeah, they start to put acids on them too.
Yeah, but early stuff, you see like dark on the paintings, all of that stuff. And even going back to the constellation and stuff, a lot of people thinking all these Greek constellations from Greeks, like there is so much, there's even, it's right as day when you go to Egypt, there is this, I forgot this tomb where they have the constellation on there. And you can tell where the Greek got copied theirs and just changed it around.
Yeah, the Greeks were educated in Alexandria.
But the thing is, what really makes me upset is, like, because you know, I have a young man, gave to go to school. I'm looking at stuff to teach him in school. Nothing to teach him in school is gonna benefit him at all. So I teach him about him as a person.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just telling them that who did this, not your people.
Right.
But
Because they're getting rid of the critical race theory.
Oh, yeah,
They're getting rid of that critical race theory.
Yes, sir, they fought it.
They fight that tooth and nail. Like you gotta be. What Mike was saying. Like now, a lot of I praise a lot of young people. They starting to wake up. They're like,
Yes, they are.
wait a minute. A lot of because I guess information is just abundant now. You just anytime somebody has an idea, you can put that idea out and ask somebody to see it. Social media, whatever. It's a double-edged sword. But if you have something to say, like right now, you get done with this right now, edit it, send it out to the world. Somebody's gonna see it, and it's people like-minded us connecting with each other. They're gonna see it like, oh yes, they're gonna tell somebody else. So I figure,
Until you put it on social media and then they consider it hate speech.
Yes.
And I've noticed a lot of people, friends of mine, have put positive things about the black community, and then they'll get put on Facebook jail, or it'll be going against the laws.
yeah.
So, for a second, it'll
Anything
be
that's
there.
dealing with positive talk about us is labeled as hate speech. Other folks can go out there and
scared.
yeah, and that goes back to the question. Oh, well, we said it, but they have gotta know some stuff about us that we so sleep on. It ain't even funny.
This is scary.
Oh,
You know, we talked about earlier how things, you know, trans into our people through DNA.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that trauma that from slavery was transformed to our DNA. But then as we start to learn more and experience now, our DNA gets affected. Right? And then we transform that stuff. That's why when we come out, the younger people seem to be a little stronger and they have a little more knowledge, whatever, because we still transferring the knowledge to them.
Yeah, come from a parent.
It's still being transferred. Now, how long is it gonna take to filter out all of that?
Couple
That-
generations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so what do you do to compensate for that, right? You're the one that's in power. What do you compensate for that? People enslaved in whatever way you can.
And not necessarily in those physical shackles.
Exactly.
Yes. It's
The
not physical.
It's
Emotionally.
mental.
You know, whatever. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Turn the men against the women, and you turn the women against the men.
Yeah.
One of the most things that I hear nowadays on social media is, and it's happened to me. I was with one of my cousins on the other side of the family, and we were talking about.
Oh, see, I'm missing the real part. Yeah, I just want to be in the basketball. Don't be close to the door behind you.
Yeah. And we were talking about you know, how sometimes black men have it, and the first thing came out of, oh, black men don't have it hard as women, and I said, why does it have to be a competition, sister? If you tell me black women have it hard, I'm just gonna be like, I feel you, I see you. Why does it have to be, oh, you don't have such? But that's because they're turning us against each other, and it all started with the feminist movement.
Yeah.
That's true.
It started with the feminist movement, and then these, you know, because black women started to join that, and their fight was the white man's fight. Like, black men weren't denying black women of jobs.
Right.
Black men weren't doing these things. That was the white woman's fight. But
Correct.
then they joined with them.
Right.
And that's what got us to stop being marching together during the civil rights movement. And that still plays today, is where men feel like they're against the black woman and black women feel like they're against the black man.
Yeah.
And that's just part of us not being together cohesively as one. Because that family unit is what got us as far as we got.
True
after
that.
slave time and even before slavery.
That's true.
True that.
That's true. That's true. I think like you hit on the head with the feminist movement. They had to capitalize on something. They had to, okay, white women, their legacy, they're married to white men. They were white men, so their legacy will follow whatever. They have white women have white children. So your legacy is gonna be okay. But in order to get that push, they had to get that what's called a black woman plight. You know what I'm saying? And then now you got women like saying, I don't need a man, whatever. Like you never see a man say that. Like, no man gonna be saying I don't need a woman. We don't do that. But you see how they flip it. So it's sad because you gotta have both. There's no way around it. And that's how you say how we got through slavery and all that. Because we were like this, like prior, after Reconstruction, like black family were the most married family of all the races.
And having a truckload of kids.
We were like,
yeah, the kids.
we were like this.
Yeah.
Our marriage, we had the highest marriage of all the races. Soon as they
Yeah.
started the welfare, boom. You want welfare? You can't have a man in the house.
That's really where a lot of that started.
Boom. Like you
Separating the family.
said, it's not shackles as far as shackles like the way our ancestors. Because in modern times shackles are different. Economics. Just how the social world,
economic.
that's the new shackles. Like
Debt.
Yeah.
A young brother can't be fully himself at a job interview. He has to put on an act.
Yes.
He has to speak.
A certain way.
A certain way. That
Like Ralph said, you
automatically-
can't come with too much bass in your voice.
He can't have his hair how it naturally grows
Nope.
out of his head.
Yeah.
And the other thing that gets me too is, you know, and I have to exercise that. That's up to a degree. It changed over time, but whenever, they already fear that, but whenever they know you're smarter than them, when they know, it's like, man, he's still smarter than me, this and that, whatever, they purposely gonna keep you in a position. Right. Even if you got all the right answers and all the right things to do, they're okay if you give it to them.
Yep.
And then let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not gonna let you present it.
And then I can give you then I can give you the credit for it. And they do that with black women a lot also. And when a black woman is assertive, they call her an angry
Yes.
black woman.
When you show passion about something, it's
angry.
yeah, it's labeled as angry, not
And then they throw
passionate.
in that, what would Jesus do to make you act a certain way? When they don't even talk about how Jesus went up in that temple and he flipped that
Turned
thing
all that stuff over,
upside down.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a rebel. Like, it's, like I said, it's, nowadays, like, information is there, you just have to find it. That's the only downside. It's there, but the distraction that they put in front of you, a lot of the young brothers, they put out a lot of these distractions. Because you go, like, let's say, an example, like Chicago. Like, the amount of ingenuity these young brothers have just having a drug game. You have to know business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know
Accounting.
accounting.
Of
You
course.
gotta know so much.
Yes.
You-
Straight businessmen.
You're a businessman.
Great.
Espionage.
Legit. Exactly. Little intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hold on, pet training. That for those pigeons to let them know. Like, yeah, it's a lot that goes into that.
A
Yep.
lot. So a lot of those brothers, they are herded in that group, and we kind of give them this, like, this is your world. They don't see, but whatever is in the circle is what you see. So what they do, they just end up hurting the person that's in front of them. They don't go sell drugs to a white person. They sell to us because that's we in the vicinity. But
Your people.
once we do that, that's purposely done. It's purposely done like that because they know, like, if you take that same kid that's doing all this stuff and you put him in a prestigious, let's say you put him in Harvard, you give him a scholarship to Harvard, he's gonna be the top % student in there, bar none.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want that. They just because it scares them. Because, as a matter of fact, this happened a couple of weeks ago. A couple of young black girls, they won valedictorian.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
They came back a couple of days later. Oh,
Mistake.
mistake. These other girls too can get it. The rules valedictorian been in that school for the last 20 years.
Right.
It's on a new grading scale.
Based on the new grading scale, out of nowhere, because you had for whatever reason, this school year there was no white valedictorian.
Wow.
So you just had to
Valedictorian or salutatory.
Yes.
Correct.
Either one.
So yeah, they protested and said, well, wait a minute.
Yep.
Our kids are just that smart. They got the same GPA. Well, they got the same GPA, but
They weren't taking the same
they
type
took,
of classes.
they took wood blocks. and then the other
Instead of
kids took
AP.
trigonometry. and
Yeah.
AP. Right, exactly. They took all of these sorts of courses and was able to maintain that. And all that's calculated in. Like I said, the rules were already there and established. And then they made a decision based on the established rules. But then, you know, you get that complaint, and then now you got to share those titles.
Yeah.
You know, like, really?
Yeah.
What's that all about? But again, it's that same thing, right? Those soft rules, those implied things that they put upon us. Whenever we get them and we beat them, they find another way to spend it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they try to keep us in these
Keep us
in these positions.
Yeah.
Man.
So-
One thing that kind of stands out to me, kind of right in the faces, is gentrification.
Yeah.
What's going on in not just Atlanta, but all across the country.
Yes.
So you take west side Atlanta, like my father, I'm one generation removed from this man having this mother, not allow him to go to the window so he can see a cross burning
Right.
off in the distance.
Yeah.
Right? So we're not that far removed from slavery.
Mm-mm.
But we're still learning. So we take what happened in 1865 when the people in Texas didn't know they were free.
Mhm.
We're still learning how to be free.
Mhm.
Now we're still learning what it means and what it takes to be free and maintain freedom and build generational wealth. What they've been doing for centuries.
Yep.
Right? So the biggest thing has been when you get an education, you get a good job, you move up out the hood.
Right.
Go somewhere nice. Go to a nicer neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
Leave the west side. Go to the east side. Move to Decatur. Move
And
to
what are they doing
somewhere
on the
else.
west side?
So now what are they doing? So instead of us taking our knowledge, our money, our information, and reforming and changing where we come from, we just leave it as slums.
Yes.
And we move somewhere else and feel like, hey, we got it made, and we look down on the people that still live there.
Still in that mindset back in the day when they was marching and fighting because they wanted to drink at the same water fountain, use the same restroom, sit in the same cafeteria and so forth. Now it's the same mentality.
Yeah.
So now my father, now I have children too. Now I have a different mindset. He grew up with a mindset from his experience. I'm growing up with a mindset from my own experiences, and now my children don't grow up with the mindset from what they experienced. And there's so many situations they're involved with now that's going to form and what shapes the younger generation. There's always been the young, the older people looking down at the younger people, like, oh, y'all think y'all know everything, you don't know nothing. No, they know because they feel it, because it's in their DNA.
Right.
It's structure. They
Right.
know. You know what I'm saying? They may not have the life experiences, they may not have the wisdom, which, instead of taking the wisdom from our ancestors, we're taught to separate ourselves from our ancestors.
Right.
So take the hip hop industry, right? So when a rapper's been in the game, when I was in high school, now he's old, he's outdated. His music, his message doesn't matter anymore. But when you take someone in the rock industry or in the white genre, they still praise and look up to them.
Yes.
Bon Jovi.
Rolling Stones and
Yes,
Bon Jovi,
they-
and this,
yes.
They look up to them. They still reverend them. So it's just us knowing and learning how to be what we are.
Right.
And if you think about just on that very thing, man, if you look at, and again, you have to time place it. Like you said, those guys who first started, the Run DMCs and those guys, whatever, and they looked at, oh man, that's some soft stuff. Yeah, well, you can call it that, but it was groundbreaking.
Yes.
Or what it was.
And those brothers were smart brothers.
Yeah,
They wasn't
yes.
just no dude. They were some smart brothers.
Yes.
And their stuff was groundbreaking. So we can hold on to that, and then when they move into the next thing, the NWA and all those things, them some smart brothers. Public Enemy, them some smart brothers. Pull all that together. Then now when you start moving over into the next phase, then you got a new set. You got to take all the information with you. You can't cut it off and say, "Oh man, that's it." No, you take that information with you. So if we stack those building blocks, just think if we had stacked all the building blocks,
Right.
then we'd be in a whole different place.
Sure would.
But it gets cut off, and this is what I see a lot in our community is it gets cut off because nobody is allowed to say nothing to our children. Back in the day, your neighbor could say something to your child. They could teach them something. They could say something to them or tell them not to do something because it's going to harm them. And then when you got home, you was going to get it too. But nowadays, that information is cut off because can't nobody say nothing to your child. That's my child. Don't say that to my child. So it takes away from that stacking stone community. because
That
can't nobody
village.
Say nothing to your
Yeah.
child.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
So it takes away from people wanting to, or even being able to learn from the older community, because older communities often talk, leave my child alone. This ain't your child.
Right.
Like, this ain't yours. Like, don't say nothing to my child.
Yeah, it was a whole different world for me.
So fellas, thinking about all that we've just talked about, are we? That Juneteenth is commemorating being freed during that time.
From the shackles to
So-
now we're still looking at validation. We've been celebrating Juneteenth
for years.
before it was a damn federal holiday.
Yeah.
Right. So now we need this white man to validate what we do.
Yeah.
what we celebrate and when.
Well, you know, they looked in all of that because of the George Floyd thing brought about all of this. I don't know what was the major, because it was a whole lot of people getting shot, killed, and all that before George Floyd came about. But it was something that happened with the George Floyd
The whole
situation.
thing was seen
Right,
on
they-
camera. Like from the beginning to almost the end was seen
Yeah, begin then.
on
now.
camera.
Begin then. Because in
Beginning to end.
beginning to end, you did something in the store. When
So
they,
when we look at this, man, so when the man came down to, what was it, Doraville, when he shot the Asians up, and all of a sudden they passed the Asian hate crime.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Where the hell is our hate crime?
There hasn't been one passed.
Where's our legislation?
None.
So now we're gonna put this big, now you get a day off of work.
Mm-hmm.
For what?
So here's the other piece of that mind game, that very thing, right? So they say they passed that Asian legislation, whatever, and they call it that, right? Really look at it, what is that legislation, right?
It makes it a hate crime.
Well, not just for them. What it really boiled down to is they never kept records. There was never a database kept on hate crime. Now, they can call it the Asian hate crime, whatever, that's good. Like they call, the Civil Rights Act. Who benefited the most from that? White women.
White women did.
But they didn't call it the White Women Act, they call it the Civil Rights Act. They got all the benefits from it. So that Asian hate crime, yeah, it launched it, it pushed it through for that stuff to happen. You know, the bigger question is, why did it take for something to happen to them to get that stuff recorded? Because they're going to record it when it happens to us too, right? They can call it the Asian hate crime bill, whatever, but it's really about hate crime, period. But the bigger question is, why did it have to be labeled as that? Why did it take something to happen to a couple of them, for that to get pushed out? And that's still the mental oppression for us. But now we say, oh, they looking at this and they looking at that to keep us in that turmoil.
Yes.
Keep us in that turmoil.
Yes.
And I can tell you why it took that, also because white people are becoming the minority. And so if you look in the early 1900s, Irish people were not considered white.
Yes,
Italians were not considered white, but in order to keep their numbers up, they let these groups of people assimilate to become white. You think about people from Spain and then people from Mexico. Same people.
Same.
Spanish people can be considered white. So with their numbers dwindling, the next group of people that are going to be allowed to be assimilated are going to be Asian people, because Asian people can still click white on their resume.
Yes.
They can still click white, so they had to give them an olive branch to say, we see you.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. We see you. We're trying to protect you.
Yes.
Because we're going to need you.
Right.
We're going
Right.
to need you.
Yep.
Right.
Dwelling in numbers.
Yeah. So we've now talked about this Juneteenth thing, and we're supposed to have, that's kind of like our Independence Day per se. Like the 4th of July is Independence Day. This Juneteenth thing is like the Black Independence Day, Freedom Day for us. But are we really free? When we look at this situation, are we really free? We so mentally shackled up, it ain't even funny. Well, I think that we are,
This conversation
we're
like this.
more, probably more enslaved now than we were back then, because when you got somebody's mind locked up, it's a wrap.
That's true.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
I think having a conversation like this,
Mm-hmm.
able to bring people, bring your family together and talk, to be aware, it's the seed is being sown.
Yes.
So when I look at Avery, Amir,
The little ones.
I can tell them, hey man, you want to do that? Go ahead and do that.
Yeah. That's it.
Nobody can tell you no.
That's it.
You know, I'm fortunate my mama did that to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know.
I'm sure she did that to him. And you gotta, it starts like that. Putting that spirit, energy spirit to the next generation. Telling them, hey, whatever you wanna do, you can do. There's nothing
Stopping you.
stopping you. Nothing. You don't gotta change out or change how you talk to somebody like you. You don't have to do none of that
Mm-hmm.
at all. Once you start, you tell them that at a very young age, you plant that seed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just has nowhere to go about to blossom. Nowhere to go about to blossom. I think
Yeah,
that's what.
that's the key.
That's the key. That's the key, and I think that's the reason why we're able to, because our parents were able to tell us, hey,
Mm-hmm.
be aware that there are people out there who want to hurt you, not want you to succeed. But do not let those people stop you from being who you are.
True that.
You know what I mean?
True
I
that.
got a question. All right, so whether we came from Africa,
Mm-hmm.
which we know there are different tribes
Mm-hmm.
in Africa. All the tribes didn't get along in Africa.
True.
Right? They didn't all work together.
No.
They warred, they fought one another. We were here on this continent.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so do we all come together because we're all the same color, we all work together? Because we're all, regardless of where we came from or what our background are, we still work together because we're the same color, or do we understand that we are? So when we talk about Juneteenth, we just skipped over reparation. Right? Everybody has their own idea of what that should include,
Mhm.
money, land, education, tax, whatever.
Mhm.
Everybody got their own idea of what it should be.
Right.
And every group, except for African Americans, have gotten some form
Yes,
of reparation.
they
from-
have.
From the United States, from Asians to the Native Americans,
Mhm.
every group but got reparations. Go ahead.
So
Absolutely.
going back to us learning how to move forward
Mm-hmm.
is learning each other. So not all white folks get along.
Nope.
Not all, no race, not everybody doesn't all get along. They don't all work together. So because we're all under the same oppression, the same injustice, do we just put our differences aside and work together because we look the same?
For the Caucasian or European, no, they don't all get along.
Yes, that's true.
I think most of them hate each other more than you know. But what they say about them, they on code. And that's how we got to get, is on code. They know that in order for them to survive and be able to be in the position that they in, yeah, I can't stand you or you over there either, but for this reason, we got to come on code and get together.
And the media protects them also. When
Mhm.
the Caucasians commit crimes, you don't see their faces plastered
Showed on.
all over the news.
And I label thugs.
Yeah,
That's
they're,
right.
They're labeled. They had a bad day. The last shooting that happened to the white guy.
Yes.
The police chief said he had a bad day.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
But-
was when he said that. I just, he said it with a straight face. You gotta understand that they're, what is it? When you are, when your whole generation has been at the top. How many of you are thinking right now of all the things that can be fixed? It's not even their paradigm. It's not even to their. They can't even fathom how we feeling, because it's just when you have privilege, you don't see all this. You just see my way. Bad day. The lady got shot in the head. That's a bad day. She's dead.
Right.
So do you have that? Just to have the words come out your mouth saying,
Oh, he had a
"You just
bad
had
day.
bad day." That just shows you how their mind works.
Mm-hmm.
No empathy, nothing.
That's beyond a bad day.
That just shows you they're
But that's what they labeled it as.
that's how they think. They look at we look at things when we look at something, we can feel something. We can like that person's is hurting. We have that. That's just how we were given.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have that. That's why I think that's some of the atrocities that they've done is just they don't that empathy. They don't have that level of empathy that we have. So
Right.
You can't be. If you have empathy in you, you would never say something like that.
Right.
You
But-
would never say something. So that just shows you like things that they do, all these wrong things that they do. It's just like I said, something DNA that their forefathers passed on to them. That man choking George Floyd, he was sitting there like,
Well, and you know, when we think about what you're speaking to right now, you know, you have to look at us as a people.
mm-hmm,
Those of us who have this melanated color
mm-hmm,
to us, very rarely do you see us operate in that fashion. Typically, it's them. You know, we are judged.
Among the darker skinned black people within the black race.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the lighter skinned people in the black race operate closer to that fashion.
Yep. So it's something with, I call it a gift. This gift that we've been given. They call it melanin or melanin for a reason. It helps you stay sane. I'll put it that way.
mm-hmm.
You know, I was listening to he's an ancestor now, Dilbert Blair,
Okay.
who was on the metaphysical side of things, and he has this video out there talking about how, you know, where we all came from and this, that, and the third. And he talked about these individuals or whatever they were that came here, and they sent. The Superman movie is kind of based off of the story. They sent this being here, and that being was encased with darkness to be able to withstand this solar system, because some others tried to come here before and it drove them crazy. They were like insane. So they had to have something to keep them safe and keep them sane here. Even in the Bible, it talks about, you know, how God gave us this keeper. It keep you in the right mind, keep you sane and going. It's talking about melanin. So when you look at those that judge us by our race, our age, our gender, and our education level, when you put those letters together, the folks that are doing all of that have this serious rage, R-A-G-E, about them. They have this serious rage about them. They are always angry. They always terrorizing somebody, killing somebody, taking what they have, other folk have, or whatever. And we've been done like that for so long. I think that's why Egypt was so easily infiltrated. That's just not us. That kind of stuff just not in us. So it's not in us. So we willing to help teach you and show you things, and then you scheme and take it from us. And we still don't rape your people, castrate your people, and all that. It takes some serious mental dysfunction to be that way. That's about as simple as I can put it. That's some serious mental illness to do and be that way. And I can't think of no African nation or people of color that has done somebody that way. Y'all, maybe I'm missing out on, but I don't know of any of us that ever did
You know, it's
somebody like that.
Once they started that mutation started when they started going to Europe and all that, because of course they all human beings come from us. I think that mutation is just because that blue eyes, blonde hair, that's a mutation. It's not something that's in nature. It's just a mutation because they're low sun and all that. You know, we're the only people that can sit in the sun and not die. Nobody else can do that. So when a certain mutation goes haywire, and you can't function like the way you're supposed to. You lost your connection to the source. So now you are a wandering soul. You just have no guidance. And you know, we so grounded. Black, we are grounded people.
Big time. And we don't even realize how grounded we are. We fight each other before we fight somebody else.
Yeah.
Now we'll pop off on each other in a minute, but somebody else,
But I think that's that fear. They've been so good at what they've done. Shit, give them credit.
Yeah.
They infiltrated, they mind control.
They were good at what they did.
Yeah.
And it worked. It's like you say, we'll go off on each other. Somebody owe you $20, you can ready to kill him
Yeah.
before you go after the white folks.
But yet Zimmerman is still alive.
Still walking the earth.
But you want to take your brother down for $20, but a person like Zimmerman is able to hold the auction for the weapon that he used to kill
Isn't that
this gentleman
something?
and make money off of it.
Wow. But yeah, it's amazing. But you know, I look at this day, Juneteenth, that they call it. This is my. I put it like this. I wasn't aware of Juneteenth until I moved here to Georgia. You know, in Florida, nobody ever talked about Juneteenth. You know, I started learning about Juneteenth when I moved here to Georgia. So, but yeah, but anyway, we wanted to kind of chalk it up about that a little bit. But in terms of free, me personally, I think we still got a long way to go.
A long way to go.
A long way to go. And with that, peace, family.
All right.